Hello, good morning and welcome to this webinar dealing with Connect to Grow program. The topic of today will be cybersecurity, and I will be your host as part of my B2B product manager role at Orange for cybersecurity, and I will be together with Thibaut today. Welcome Thibaut, good morning.
Good morning, thank you very much.
And we will manage together this presentation. And Thibaut, can you maybe introduce yourself to the audience here today?
My name is Thibaut Claessens and I'm a professional hacker. So it's just my job to hack companies, small or big, protect them against cyber attacks or make them aware of cyber attacks.
Okay, thank you and welcome to this webinar. So we'll try to give you some tips to improve your posture and be able to respond and to react to all the threats that are popping up in the cyberspace. As part of the first part of this webinar, we will try to make you understand better what is cyber threat, what is a cyber risk, what is cyber criminality, and we will start with a throwback in 2021. I will try with Thibaut to explain you what happened, for example, with SolarWinds. What is the type of incident and how did it reflect for a company?
Yeah, SolarWinds is a very good example. It is a very commonly used software or vendor of software. A lot of big companies, but also the smaller ones, use their software in everyday use, everyday activities. And once there's something wrong or there's a vulnerability or an issue with that piece of software, it can affect your whole company. I think it's a very good example as well. Log4j is also here. It is a piece of software linked with other software. Application A uses that and application B as well. Well, if there's an issue with that core component, that Log4j, and hackers are able to exploit it, it means that your company is very vulnerable and can be shut down or even worse, malware, ransomware, whatever that can happen. It's a very good example.
Okay, and if we take other examples such as Kaizea or even Microsoft Exchange, it's one more time some supply chain vulnerabilities that popped up, and the cyber criminals took advantage of those vulnerabilities. How can a company protect itself against such vulnerability? What type of advice would you give to a company?
Yeah, I think for one, it is very important to update the software you're using. Make sure you have the latest patches. We have the Microsoft Patch Tuesdays, or just keep on track of what is the new security patches, what are the new trends that are being pushed from the company out. That is the first step that we can do, because they are the first mostly to know what vulnerabilities there are. So that is, I think, step one, is knowing what you have, but also are we up to date with our patches.
Yeah, and for your information, most of the software vendor and also the hardware vendor are communicating about the critical vulnerabilities. When they release a patch, you can be aware, your IT supplier is probably also aware of it. So keep an eye on the vulnerabilities as a first advice during this webinar. Another key incident that happened last year is the Colonial Pipeline in the US. You probably heard about it because it was affecting critical service. And also because the CEO of the Colonial Pipeline, I think, took the decision last year to pay the ransom for more than 4 million. So this incident made a lot of media coverage. But that's also an illustration of how important it is for companies operating in critical businesses to improve their security capacities, security posture, because they are particularly exposed to cyber threat, and we will go back to this later on. In parallel of those events that were communicated in the media, at Orange we have a lot of threat intelligence capacities thanks to our SOC, cyber SOC, and emergency response team network worldwide. And last year, we made also some observation about what type of incidents and the trends that we observe as part of our customer. And we will communicate to you a bit about it today. The first observation we made is the rise of incidents that happened, not in value or in volume, but the rise of incidents per customer. So there is a clear trend that today our customers are more facing cybersecurity incident than the year before and the year before. So there is a clear increase. The second observation that we made is the importance of technology vulnerabilities. We just mentioned it before with Thibaut about Kaizea, Log4j, and so on. So this is also a clear trend that we observe, that most technology vendors are suffering from some vulnerabilities and the hackers are taking advantage of it. So that's a key element. And the third element is in terms of type of attack. The years before, we observed at Orange that most cyber incidents were targeting the network and the network anomalies. But this year, what we observe is that the malware is taking now the leadership in terms of attack categories. And that's an interesting trend because that will also lead to new habits in terms of monetization for the hacker. And we will also explain it a bit later. But as a transition slide, I will maybe remind you something that is very important. Cybercrime is no longer a matter of cyber geek in his garage that is doing some hacking for fun. It's now a real economy, it's a real industry, and this industry is today equivalent to the third biggest economy in the world after US and China. So it's not marginal, it's very important. So that's important for you to understand this because the hackers are capable today to monetize a lot. An example of monetization is, for example, the double extortion. Thibaut, you probably are comfortable with this. I don't know if you can give some words about it. And
Sure. So yeah, indeed, we have a breach into the network, breach into the company. The hackers do a ransomware. They lock your files. They make sure that you cannot use your company anymore. You cannot use your IT. So okay, you have the files that have been locked, and you need to pay to unlock them. So that's one way of getting money. But okay, who says they don't sell your data? Because okay, they have locked it, but they also have the real data. So if you're a company, you have company secrets or whatever, your rivals will be very interested. So they can sell that as well. So it's a double monetization because you can split it up into two parts and you have double the gain. So that's one way of doubling the money for the hackers.
Gain.
Yes,
exact.
Yes.
Okay, so that's a good example of the monetization strategy from the hackers, and also an example that the hackers are now really here for business purpose. So don't underestimate these threats because it's becoming a real business threat and a real business opportunity also for them. Another trend that we observe on the malware is the commoditization of the malware and the rise of services like malware as a service, where someone non-technical, not as technical as Thibaut, for example, can easily perform some damages on your company because for X or Y reasons he wants to target you. Today, a lot of services exist on the dark web, mainly, where you can purchase some services like malware as a service. How can you comment it, Thibaut? Do you see this trend also?
Yeah.
On your ethical hacker side?
These days, you don't need the technical knowledge, as you say. You need money. You need money to pay for those services, and for really small amounts of euros or Bitcoin. In dark web cases, it's mostly Bitcoin. Can really purchase a lot of things. Can be malware, but can also be a denial of service attack. Or you can purchase account information or company information. As we said before, company gets breached, they publish the data, sell the data. 9 out of 10, it will be on the dark web. So now it's shifting from technical knowledge to just having money and being able to do that cyber damage.
Okay, so you can invest money, but you get a payback because if your attack is successful, you can also receive ransom. So it's a switch in terms of cybercrime approach.
Definitely.
Okay. Yeah. We also hear a lot about the operator role and affiliate role, where the operator is manufacturing the malware, and then you have the affiliate who are distributing it. It's also linked to the malware as a service. Are you aware of such trends?
It's a new business model. It's the business model that's new with this age, with this information age, and that's how it works these days. Like I said, someone who creates it, someone who sells it, and someone who benefits from it, and doesn't have to be the same people in one line. Definitely. Yeah.
Now we will perform a small workshop together with Thibaut to show you how simple it can be for a hacker, and especially a Russian hacker, which is a professional hacker, to hack a website. And that website can be really, really a pain for you as a company, especially for e-shop, e-business, where your website is central in your business grow, revenue grow, and so on. we also consider that the website, even if you don't have an e-shop and e-commerce activity, is important in terms of image, because that's also the way you communicate to your customer and prospect. So in any case, a website is a weak element in your company strategy. So Thibaut, if you can show us how simple it is to hack a website.
Certainly. Yeah, so like you said, it is a web shop. A web application can be anything. In this case, it will be a website which sells wines. Some breakfast, some lovely wines. I think there's a very common thing we can see with different companies. We have champagne, cheese for two, and some breakfasts. And we can, as every web shop, we can view a product. But in this case, we need to log in. Because before you can purchase something, you have to log in. The same for different wines. Before we can purchase a wine, we have to create an account, because just this case. So what every hacker will try is fill in a username and password. Maybe something we found online, but or something we know, or just random things to try to log in. In this case, we can see the password was invalid, and our log information, or our information will be logged. And that's the key point here. We already know with some searching, it is a Java application. That with the fact it's being logged brings us back to the previous slide, the log4j. It is technology being used behind this application. And that's the real vulnerability here. That it will log that the user has failed to log in. So first thing we will try is actually to look for vulnerabilities. We know there's a vulnerability, so we'll try to create an exploit or find an exploit, even better. In this case, there's just a public exploit available. We download it, we run it, and it gives us a piece of string, a piece of text, which we just enter into the web application. So we copy it, we paste it as our username in this case, and we click login. So what happens now? Well, we've triggered the exploit, because the application logs the information. This user has tried to log in, but we give it just a simple string. We create a connection back to us. So now the server where the website is running talks to us. We have complete control over the server. We can see who am I on this server. I'm root. Root is known as I'm the top level, the top boss of the server. I can do anything I want.
The admin.
The admin of everything. I can change the website, what we will do now.
Okay.
I can do anything we want. Now, in this case, because we were using this exploit, as soon as we shut down the web server, we lose our connection. And that's what hackers do. They want to build in persistence. If anything happens, if the system shuts down, if it reboots, if something changes, we still want that connection. That's called a persistence. And that's what we're going to do. But first of all, we're going to download or put our vulnerable website or malicious website to that web server using some commands, something we did prior because we saw the application beforehand. So we're going to download that, and then we're going to set that persistence to make sure when we update that the website, that we still can reach back to the machine. So first of all, what I do is a simple command again. As you can see, it's not that big of a command. It's very small and it's very common tools. There are no real, apart from that exploit, it's tools everyone can download. And now we can see, if I go back to my shell, it's called, I'm still root. Now I can shut down the server and I'm still connected to that website.
So if you shut down the server, the website is no longer working?
It's no longer working, but I still have my connection. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to misuse that to replace that current website.
Mm-hmm. So it's no longer publicly available, but you are still the admin in the backdoor system.
Yeah.
And you can modify the content and then release again the website?
Correct.
Okay.
So now I just shut down the website. As you can see, it's shut down and the website is no longer working. This means, because we have my persistence, I'm still able to do something. This means I can do whatever I want on that web server. Like I said before, I downloaded or I uploaded in this case, a hacked version of the website to that machine. It's called hacked. I'm just going to replace that with the real one. Mm-hmm. Because I still have my persistence, I can also restart my system and restart the web server. I will do that now. And then we will see a changed version. I made it a fun version, but it's not always fun. It's a very serious matter. We can see Tomcat, in this case the web server, has started again. And if I go back to the original page, we will be greeted with the login screen. If I go back to home, we'll see the site is completely changed. We no longer have the catalog, and now it's really the case. Can we still trust this website? That's the biggest part. You don't see, apart from the images, because I want to make it obvious, but if those images are not there, how certainly are we that the website is hacked or not? And that's the big danger here. Now we left a lot of tracks, but real hackers will remove the tracks, the logs information. So if the real administrator goes into the web server, he will not see that someone has been there. And this is where the real threat lies.
And possibly an end customer can use its credentials, credit cards, bank account, and so on.
Especially with web shops, it will be username, password, but also credit card information. Are you paying? And instead of the money going to the real company, it goes to me. That's.
And plus, the credentials can also be sold on the dark web, because we know that today a bank account or an ID or whatever personal information you can find have a financial value on the dark web.
Yeah, as we explained before, it's a whole other ecosystem running with cybercrime. Yes.
Okay. How long does it take for a hacker to take control of a website?
Depends on the things, of course. In this case, it was very obvious that log4j is there and it's being logged. But then it's just a matter of seconds. It could be that it's more difficult, that there are more hoops to go through, but every aspect that's being published online will be a gateway to the company, or can be a gateway to the company. It can be a matter of seconds or a matter of years, and that's the biggest thing. Real hackers don't have a set time frame to work in. They have all the time they want, and that's where we as pen testers or ethical hackers, that's our biggest issue. Our biggest thing we face is we only have a certain amount of time to find things, whilst real hackers out there, they have days and days on end to try to get in, and that's a big difference, and something that really people need to understand. Cyber evolves as much, so quickly these days, and hackers try to hop on that bandwagon and get in the newest vulnerabilities, and it's an evolving thing, and it's really they have all the time. That's the key point here.
Okay. And what would be the recommendation for a company to protect its website? Is that to use a web application firewall? What type of solution exists to protect to such type of attack?
There's no one thing to solve it all. There's no one ring to rule them all, as we say. No, it is a combination of things. We need to do web application firewalls, or we want to do a pen test, a penetration test, a security test. We want to update everything. We need a register of what is that software, or what is that web application using? Which version is it on? Being aware of what is out there is already a big step in front. It's already the first steps we can take to be more secure.
Okay, and backupping its configuration as well.
Yes, yeah.
Because if it happens, you need to recover as quick as possible.
And make sure that those backups are also secure, that they're not on the same system, because if that system gets hacked, your backups get hacked. So,
and that you don't back up a corrupted version as well.
Voilà, okay. Definitely.
Thank you, Thibaut, for this live hacking and demo, and for the advice that you shared to our audience here today. Now it's time to go for the third part of this webinar, and the tips that you would like to share with you to improve your security posture as a small organization. And it's important to understand what is a security posture, because security today is a risk management exercise. So you will never be 100% protected. So it's not a protection matter. It's really a security posture and risk management exercise that you need to face on daily basis. In order to introduce this path, we decided to share with you some observation that we made, and especially for SMEs, most of the time, security is associated to protection. Like, people invest in antivirus, firewall, and they believe that they are safe because they invested money in technologies. But it's much more complex than that. And especially because the technologies, as you see, can sometimes have some vulnerabilities. So they are used in order for the attacker to enter your perimeter. So here we wanted to just remind you some some foundations about cybersecurity and to go back to some framework that are here to help you build your cybersecurity strategy. So we have three frameworks here on the screen. The first one is one of the most common, I think, is the 3 pillars of cybersecurity, which is made of people, so your employees, you as a manager also, the processes that make cybersecurity work in your organizations, and the technologies, antivirus, firewall, and what we mentioned just before. So you see from the first framework, we already see that technology is just one component of your global cybersecurity strategy. The second framework is more about data. It's a data protection triad, and it's the CIA triad, so confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Today we decided to focus on the third framework, which is much more a vertical approach, but that makes you realize the importance of governance and management that most of the times for SMEs is underestimated. So here we really encourage you to address cybersecurity from a business management angle and no longer from a technology angle. So that's the main message for us today. And we will jump into the topic by starting on the governance part. So maybe Thibaut, you can share a word about this part, which is for us a key element at the starting point of every security strategy.
Yeah, certainly. And I think one of these elements here, which really tingles my knowledge or my interest is knowing your IT perimeter. It all starts with what do we have? What is in our company? That's really the baseline you need to know. Because what are you going to protect if you don't know what you have? So it all starts from there, and that's really an easy step. I don't say it's very easy, but it's the first steps companies can take into securing themselves. Knowing what we have. Do we have? How many computers do we have? What's on those computers? Because your IT perimeter consists of the assets. They're not all physical. We have a physical computer, but it can also be software assets. What software? What libraries? What information do we have? Those are all assets that need to be protected. But you need to know what they are before you can protect them, of course.
Yeah, so and also the data.
Yeah, certainly.
Because assets are hosting some data most of the time.
Yeah, certainly. So once you know what's out there, another point there is inform and train your employees. Well, okay, we know what we have. Okay, how are we going to protect them? We cannot put one person to protect it. Everyone needs to know how can we handle our assets in a secure manner. How can we provide data to our customers, to ourselves? How can we process data in a secure manner? Everyone who touches your asset needs to be aware or trained how to use it securely. Mm-hmm. That's another topic I really believe in that needs to be tackled.
Yeah, and especially when we know that 95% of incidents results from a human error. So definitely employee awareness is a key element that we advise SMEs to address, because it can be quite easy, it can be a quick win, easily implemented, it's low budget, so definitely it can be a key focus for your cybersecurity strategy. Also, I would like to go back to the IT perimeter, but that will also help you to handle the first advice that we list here in our PowerPoint, is the management of your risk. So if you know where are your assets, what are your assets, where is your data, and you also know your core business, your geographical location. Are you part, for example, of a critical service like the colonial pipeline, for example? As soon as you know all those data, you should be capable to list the risk that you are potentially exposed to, and you should be also able to classify them. As soon as you classify them, you should also be able to take a decision, you as a manager, to decide which level of tolerance do you want to allocate to the different risks that you identify. So that's a pure management exercise, but that is also often underestimated as part of SMEs, one more time, that are most of the time focusing on the protection part rather than the governance, which is possibly a quick win for you. The last element that we listed here is the preparation of a response plan, because an incident can happen. We see that it pops up from everywhere, locally, internationally. So nobody is exempted. So it can happen to you tomorrow and one day. I do not wish it to you, but it can happen. So it's very important that your organization is prepared, that you associate the roles and responsibilities, what is actions to be taken in case of incidents, in order for you to save time and to limit the damages. Because we see that most of the time, if you are not ready to react, the damages are more important than if you are ready to react. So that's for the governance part. The second part that we would like to share with you today is the management part. So the second level, just below the governance, which is closer to the operations. And one of the advice here is the split between the IT domains and the privileges that you can associate to your employees and to your team. It can also include the external provider that have access to some of your resources. So that's also something that we see as very important to manage security risk.
Yeah, definitely. And I think from a technical aspect, as a hacker, the first thing we try to do as soon as we get into a company is something that's called a privilege escalation. We try to get to the highest level in the company, or IT level. As we've seen in the demo just now, I was a root. Root is the toppest level. That's the best privileges. I have all the privileges. That's what people want. But splitting that within your organization, it's very important to do that, because you can add more layers of security. So it will be more difficult to get to that root permission level. Yeah, make sure it's all split up and properly protected. Yeah.
So segmentation is key.
Very important. Yeah. Definitely.
We also see here the backup. We also mentioned it earlier during the live demo. Backupping is definitely important. If you can automate those backup to make it regularly, that will definitely help you in case of incidents, in order to recover also more easily. And as you can see, it will save you time, especially, for example, for eShop, where the configuration can be complex. It takes time to install and so on. So that's a good advice.
Yeah, and also, taking backups is very good, but making sure they're working is even better, because you can make a backup and say, we make backups, it's fine. But if you never test that backup can be replaced, so the system is down, take a backup. If that process has never been tested, you're in a new issue. Mm-hmm. You can make as many backups as you want, but make sure that the backups you take are working, that they are proper, and you can put them in place whenever needed. So
Okay.
Regularly, but also make sure it works.
Yeah, good advice. Because when you need your backup, you don't have time to test and to learn.
Yeah.
And the last advice that we see also, that's also quite basic, it's to apply very robust password policies. We see passwords are the weekend entry point, let's say, to IT perimeters.
Yeah.
You as a ethical hacker, I can imagine that you see also it as an entry point, as an entry door.
Yeah, most definitely. I think passwords are very commonly leaked. I think every week we get a news article, company X has been breached and the passwords have been leaked. Well, those leaks are eventually, we can get them. We have those passwords. If you don't change your password for X amount of time, well, that's the first thing we're going to try as a hacker. If I obtain those leaked databases, that's the first thing we're going to try. So one thing is indeed a robust password policy, being update regularly, the same as backups, update regularly, but also make it as complex as possible. Maybe use a password manager. Mm-hmm. If you do, everyone in a family, someone has someone in your family, I can't remember all those passwords. Well, a password manager might be an interesting solution, because it will tell you, hey, maybe it's time to change your password. Hey, this is a weak password. So that's something that already can be implemented. A very quick win, as we say, in pumping up that password policy feature or layer of your company.
Okay, thanks. And you as a manager, I think it's important to take this topic and to impose in your IT systems some rules. For example, the length of the passwords, the complexity, and so on. And for example, not accept a weak password for accessing corporate data. So that's also the type of quick wins that you can put in place in a few days as part of your management role. The last element is the operations. So here we are really addressing the vulnerabilities. So we try to protect the perimeter. So we discussed already the updates. So that's an important topic that it's in the news very often.
Yeah, because the demo we just gave, it would be completely solved with just updating your software. In this case, it was a vulnerable version of Log4j. Well, one update or one patch and the exploit or this whole scenario would not be possible. So sometimes it's just a click on a button and you can update. So it's again a quick win, but it's a very important action that we need to take.
Yeah, and also important to realize that this type of vulnerabilities in the systems is also implying a lot of technology provider. So we also see some security provider that sometimes suffer from security vulnerabilities. So it does not mean that you have a security component, that this component is completely safe. So it's important also that you include those components in your patching and update strategy as part of your IT operations. Another element is the email. It's the main vector to spread malware. So it's definitely important. And more with all the integration between, for example, Microsoft Office 365, we see more and more integration in different ecosystems. So definitely we recommend to address the email protection as a dedicated topic.
Yeah, but also, again, the other part, training, is also important here. Phishing, it's a very common attack vector. And I think most of the ransomwares I've seen originate from phishing. A successful phishing attack it's a way into the company. So protecting your emails, having certain filters in place, and that alongside with the training of people. Hey, this is a phishing. Train them how to see phishing is a very key operation or key point in protecting, even further protecting the company from certain attacks. Yeah.
And that's a very good example of what we mean with security posture. It's the combination of different elements that will allow your organization to be better protected against the risk. Then we have two more components which are really technology driven, which is one, the next generation firewall, which is definitely important, and especially in perimeters that are getting broader and broader with the cloud migration, with the remote workers and so on. Sometimes it's a bit difficult to understand where is your network, but definitely the data that you have, either in the cloud or in your data center, needs to be protected with a network protection solution.
Yeah, so earlier we said, okay, do not put all your money into devices or components, but it doesn't mean we don't have to. We don't need to. It's really important to have that layer, as you say, remote working. Okay, how are we going to tackle that? That brings a whole new set of vulnerabilities into your company. So having a firewall that can do the next thing, the next best thing, that is up to date, that is maybe in the cloud. Tools that can aid us building that posture, as you say. All these elements intertwine with each other. Having someone trained to do that firewall, to manage that firewall. Having someone trained to look at, okay, what is the output of this firewall? Those next-gen firewalls can really give very specific details that you can fastly detect an attack. Preventing is more likely or better than recovering from. So next to the knowledge is also the tools. We cannot forget about the tools.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Governance and management are not sufficient. We need to complement them with technology and protection strategies. So definitely yes. Yeah. And the last one is the antivirus. We see more and more changes in that domain. We see more and more endpoint detection and response, endpoint protection platform like EPP, EDR. Those are terminologies that are on the rise also at the moment, with like a dense competition on that market, with strong progress made over the last few years. Antivirus is the protection of your endpoint, but today is getting much more complex and much more broader than in the past to face new type of attacks and new type of risk, I guess. Do you have some input also to share to our audience today?
So as an ethical hacker, I try to bypass these things, and sometimes it's very difficult. But the thing is, it's a cat and mouse game. Hackers will always be one step ahead in terms of the defense party. It is, the defense needs to react to the attacker party, and it's very. These tools are very, very good and very needed, because not everyone can create new viruses or malware, but there are people out there who can do that, who can bypass an AV, antivirus. So that also links to, update regularly. Again, everything is interconnected. Having that tool is important. Knowing how to use it and being up to date is as important as having it. Certainly.
Thank you, Thibaut, for this live hacking and your time with us today. And thank you also on behalf of our audience.
Good pleasure.
If you want to know more about our IT capacities, you can contact us on the dedicated email address b2bsecurity@orange.be. And our IT integrator, Beckham, will be delighted to help you with your cybersecurity strategy and projects. So do not hesitate to get in touch with us. Thank you for your time today and have a good day.
And stay safe.
And stay safe, exactly, yeah.